Thank you. It's been a little over 4 years since Kim and I walked into this church for the first time. I'd never been in a Mennonite church. I had friends in Missouri who are Mennonite, but different Mennonites. And I walked in expecting to see this kind of design for the building. But my head turned toward that picture, that sign that's on the wall over there, which happens to be Jeremiah, from Jeremiah. And I remember someone, Don and, no, who was it? Who was it that was greeting us that day? I can't remember who the greeters were, but I just froze looking at that thinking, is this a message? Because that's been my favorite, one of, if not my favorite scriptures my entire life. And I thought, well, maybe this is a sign. I wasn't sure about being in a Mennonite church, but I thought, ooh, that's kind of a sign that that's there. So we're a small group this morning, thank goodness, and I'm inviting you to go on a journey with me this morning. Challenging. That's been the word for the last few years, hasn't it? The pandemic, debt ceiling issues, wars escalating, continued gun violence, and growing hatred toward minority groups. And now that I've said that, let's for just a minute put those issues aside. They're real. We shouldn't put them too far away from our thinking. But for just this moment, if you would go with me. The journey I want us to take this morning is one of personal reflection, a faith journey, we might call it. I'm going to travel my road, the road that got me to where I am today. And what I want is for you to reflect on your own journey, how you got where you are today. How did I get to this life? Sometimes I wonder that. I bet sometimes you wonder it too. How did you get where you are? I'm a real believer in reflection, probably much to Kim's frustration because I'm reflecting 20 hours of 24 a day on some issue. But I believe to take reflection seriously, we're going to realize there's a plan. There's a purpose. God's plan and God's purpose for our lives. As I use my story, I want you to think about those parts of your life, your journey, those times of joy, those times where there were lots of barriers put up in front of you. Now, the name of the show, the television show, was This Is Your Life. Some of you are old enough to remember that, but it ran between the 1950s and the 1980s. For those of you who are blessed with being too young to remember it, let me tell you a little bit about it, or remind those of you who were around at that time. The purpose of the show was to surprise a guest and then celebrate that person's accomplishments. The person being recognized could be a scientist, a musician, an artist, a lawyer, a preacher, or a teacher. And there were always people who had used their gifts and excelled in their work. Whatever they had done, there had been a passion there, and that gift had been used to make a positive difference in the lives of others. Now, I was a strange kid, and I admit it. For many years, that was my TV show, my favorite TV show. Yeah, other people were watching Lassie and whatever else was on at that time in the 50s, but I was watching This Is Your Life because I became so fascinated that people had used their lives, their careers, to make a difference in the lives of others. They had become what I would call agents of change. They looked, they saw, they worked to bring about a positive difference in the lives of others. and ultimately work to make the world a better place. For many years, that was my favorite show because I was fascinated by that phrase, agents of change. I was fascinated how they had used their lives to become these agents of change. And I also, because I've always loved words, I don't have a great vocabulary, but I love words. And so as I watched that show, I would always ponder, this is your life, 4 words. And I would sit there and go, this is your life, or this is your life, or this is your life, or this is your life. Now, my sitting around doing that had nothing to do with the show whatsoever, just my simple fascination with the word. And each way of emphasizing it carried no meaning to what the show was going to be about. I sat there and wondered, will I ever have my life on that TV show? Can I ever be a part of this is your life? And then I would think, that ain't gonna happen. And I would think, am I going to spend my life comparing my life to their lives, to the greatness that they had done? Got to transition here for a moment. I have come to realize in the last 4 years that I had a good Mennonite foundation, although I simply did not know it. It was happening without my knowing it. I understood hard work. I understood the importance of learning. I understood the need to end problems with words, not with fighting. This one makes me smile. I understood the importance of saving. I'm glad you all smiled at that, because that one makes me smile when I think about it. But then this next one also makes me think about you. And it makes me think about how I was brought up. I understood the importance of serving. So when you think about those things, I had a pretty good Mennonite bringing up, didn't I? In spite of it being in a Baptist church. But I don't hold that against anybody. Okay, so somewhere during my early years, I stumbled onto that Jeremiah scripture and that 1 Timothy scripture that you heard earlier. For I know the plans I have for you, declared the Lord, plans to prosper you and not do harm to you, plans to give you hope and a future. And then Paul to Timothy, do not neglect the gift that is within you. Not the gift you find walking down the street, but the gift that is within you. I took those words to heart, and I believed all was going to be well. Who knows, I thought, I might someday be on This Is Your Life. I doubted it, but I thought it might happen. But what I did believe was that God really did have a plan for my life. I was a young kid, and I thought, he has a plan. Kind of frustrated that at that time I didn't know what it was, but I thought he has a plan. He has a purpose for it. Now, I said earlier I was kind of a strange kid. I don't know if I was nerdy or what, but I was strange, and I like the word nerd. So I was always thinking about the meaning of that TV show title. And I was always focused on I really was always focused on the lives of those people who appeared on that show. But I knew realistically that probably I would never be there. Living in the southwestern part of Virginia, in those Appalachian mountains, the child of a coal miner and a waitress, it seemed clear to me, and I remember thinking this, I would have to find my own life's pathway. Did you hear what I said? I would have to find it. It sounds a little bit like I might have thought I was in charge of what was going to happen. Now, at that time, when I reflect, and I hope you're reflecting on your own life, when I reflect about it, I realize that seeds were being planted and that God must have been at work laying out my pathway. This little kid in the mountains of Virginia. First, I remember that little girl, much of a lot of days spent time in an empty smokehouse. There was no meat hanging. How many of you know what a smokehouse is? Okay, I thought there'd be some hands up on that. I spent the night in that empty smokehouse, and I had my dolls and my stuffed animals all lined up so I could teach them. What was I teaching them? I have no idea. No idea. But I was an earnest teacher, and they listened. They never moved. They were much better listeners than a lot of students I had years later. Now, are you still with me? Are you remembering things from those days in your life that connect with you today? Maybe it wasn't a smokehouse and dolls and stuffed animals, but something that you're remembering. That's the first seed I realized was planted. But then there was a second seed, or second set of seeds, I might say. It was planted, or they were planted, by one of the great local philosophers in the town where I grew up. Because my mom worked absolutely unbelievable hours, I spent a lot of time at the home of this great philosopher. Her name was Florence. How I wish you could have known Florence. You would have learned some things from her. You would have loved her just like I did and still do. Florence had 12 children. Her husband died shortly after the last child was born. A black woman, Florence did not have an easy journey in a small southern town in the 1950s, especially with 12 children, and especially being illiterate. And yet, Florence was quite the storyteller. I moved through the day with whatever she was doing. She could not get me away from her side at all. We would lie in the grass, and she would tell me the most amazing stories based on the shapes of the clouds. Much like today, my favorite day of the week was Sunday, because I got to go to her church. I got to hear her preacher do the sermon. I got to hear lots of amens and yes, Lord, coming from the congregation. And the word mantra had not become a part of my vocabulary yet. You didn't hear that word a lot when I was growing up, where I was growing up. But now I realize that Florence had 2 mantras. And those mantras, I'm almost 76 years old, and those mantras have stuck with me every day of my life since then. They were all about pathways. I don't know that I figured that out then, but now I realize they were about pathways. Joe was Florence's youngest son. He was closest to me in age, but he was already in school. I smiled for a reason, I'll tell you later, Natalie. But Joe was already in school. And every day he would hit that screen door and say, "I'm starved, Mama, what's here to eat?" And just as he hit that screen door, she would start cutting off little chunks of bologna and scrambling eggs. That was going to be all mixed up. And she would turn as she scrambled those eggs and look at Joe and say, "It ain't going to change till you make it change." And Joe made it change. This black kid trying to grow up and deal with all the cruelties of life in the South in the 50s, became a neurosurgeon. Now, I have to add here, he's not the only one of Florence's kids who finished college. 11 of the 12 finished college. That's pretty amazing even today. Even in affluent families, that's pretty amazing. But Claude, who was the oldest, finished high school, still amazing at that time. Then he put Dorothy through college, and Dorothy put Margaret through college, and on down it went. But Joe got it. It ain't gonna change till you make it change. And he made it change. She spoke another mantra. When it looked like money was running low and there wasn't going to be enough for food or the electric bill or whatever, she'd put her hands on her hips, kind of rear back. She was a tiny woman, but rear back and say, "Come the day, come the way. Come the day, come the way. It'll be here when I most need it." And you know what? It seemed to me as a kid, it always was there. She ran out of money, I guess, but she never ran out of faith that whatever was needed would be provided. Not wanted, but needed. Two of those mantras implanted seeds in this brain. It ain't gonna change till you make it change. And come the day, come the way. It said to me, "Lois Ann, you must become the agent of change. And you must trust the pathway will unfold. No matter how bumpy, no matter how smooth, it will unfold." So two things stood out there to me. I have to become, and I have to trust. For me, the seeds were planted. Now I want you to think about your early seeds. I'm not going to call on you as I would if we were in class, but I want you to think about your early seeds. I want you to think about who were the people, who were the places, where were the places, what were the circumstances that have made such an impression on you today. And they go with you no matter how old you are. If you're 20, if you're 40, or if you're almost 76, those thoughts are still with you. There's something going on. Think about that. As I grew, I learned as much as I could. I was in school for 20 years from first grade through PhD. And then I taught, and I challenged students, because I love students, for 43 years. I worked so hard to plant seeds of, one, subject content, hard work, and then confidence in those students, that they believed in themselves, that they recognized they were valuable, no matter where they came from, no matter how much money their parents had, no matter if their parents were coal miners and waitresses, they were people, are people of value. I look back on those seedings and that folding pathway into teaching. And I marvel at that because I really thought I should be on This Is Your Life. I just marvel, though, at how that teaching turned into my heart's desire to touch a life and watch it bloom. Watch that student become an agent of change. To watch that student make a difference in somebody's life. 2 weeks ago, Kim and I sat on a Monday morning and did a virtual viewing of one of our students defending his PhD, his dissertation. He's at Columbia University in New York, and we sat there, as I said, virtually, and watched this. His story was a story that most of us could not connect with, or could not imagine even happening. His parents kicked his older brother out when the brother came out as gay. And because of the allegiance of Danny to his brother, he left home too. And Danny ended up spending his second part of his sophomore year of high school through his senior year of high school sleeping on the sofa of friends. And when we sat and listened to that professor describe what he sees in Danny, and when he said, nothing can stop him. He knows his life has a purpose, and he is working to fulfill that purpose. I thought, yeah, no wonder I am in awe of the gift that I was given of working to help unfold the path of others who are becoming change agents. You see, I'm a first-generation high school graduate. That's most people say, oh, first-generation college graduate. No, first-generation high school graduate. Where I lived, reaching the 8th grade was an accomplishment. If you were able to finish the 8th grade and go to work at about age 15, that was an incredible accomplishment. Three of my 4 grandparents were illiterate. So all I can think about is Florence saying, it ain't going to change till you make it change. And then there were Jeremiah's words, I have a plan for your life. And Paul to Timothy, do not neglect that gift that is within you. Are you still with me? Are you thinking about your own journey, the seeds that were planted there, and how it is playing a role, even today, again, no matter how old you are, that it's playing a role in watching your life unfold? Reflect on those seeds. Think about how they have worked to create the path you are walking today. Because again, no matter how old we are, we're still on a path. And our purpose, I personally believe, is unfolding. After all, what did we sing? Open mine eyes that I might see. Open mine ears that I might hear. There's a word, though, in there, that in one of the lines, glimpses of truth. Glimpses. Glimpses are little tiny things to me. And I don't know about you, but there have been a lot of times in my life where I'd say, God, if you could just tell me what the plan is, what the purpose is, I could get on with it. What are you doing? Give me a break here. And guess what I heard? Nothing. Because I had the plan. I thought I knew what I should be doing and where I would be best used. I know what my talents are. Why am I not being put in a place to use them? And what did God say? Nothing. But there are those glimpses of truth. I don't know about you, but sometimes when I hear God has a plan for my life, I think, this is a plan you have for me? Really? Cut me some slack, God. This is asking a lot of me. I have to admit, and maybe it's not right to admit this, but I'm going to, so forgive me. We cared for my mom for 34 years, and that was hard. That put a lot of things that we thought we were going to be doing after retirement on hold. And I'd say, God, I want her to be well taken care of, but what are we supposed to be doing? And the answer, nothing. I don't mean God was saying nothing. I mean silence was what was happening at that time. Most of the time when that happens to me, and it still happens, I just kind of realize I have to quit struggling with God. I love debate. It drives Ryan crazy, but I love debate. And I've learned you can't debate with God. He has a plan, he has a purpose, And that plan is going to unfold how he wants it to unfold, when he thinks it's going to unfold, how he thinks it's going to unfold in terms of what he's doing. Is that easy? No, it's a royal pain. If I ever make it to heaven, I have a lot to talk with him about. It's hard to release control. Are any of you control? Ryan called me a control freak, or maybe I call myself one, but he agreed. But do any of you struggle with control? Do you struggle with having your plan in place and it's not unfolding as it should? It's hard, guys. It's really, really hard. It's hard to know what the purpose is. We become frustrated. And then that frustration is something that we have to focus on. But I think, at least for me, I'm not saying this will work for you, but for me, I have found a plan. Sounds like I'm still in control, doesn't it? What I do, is focus on something, on whatever it is that brings me positive energy. And I see that positive energy as a passion. And then what I do after I've looked at that and said, that is a passion I have, I take that passion and try to enact it into the broader world, into the bigger world. And if it's still bringing me joy, if I'm trusting that there's joy in what I'm doing, then I have to believe that that is a gift. If I still find the passion in it. As the song says, all we have to do is open our eyes and trust the one who holds tomorrow. I believe when you do that, when you trust and believe, then the plan will unfold. From listening to your stories during my short time here, I know that you too have sought and followed pathways, and sometimes there's been frustration about it. You've questioned the path that you're on. Your stories, and I think I know enough of you now to say this comfortably, your stories are so intriguing to me. They are so humbling because of how beautiful it is to see God's footprints being followed, that you're following them. There was a children's time shared by Mark Miller one Sunday. It's been one of the best sermons I've ever heard. You may remember it. I call it the 300 pancake story. It was a story about, I guess the kids were all out playing, and somebody ran and said they're inside to his mom and said, there's a man coming up the road, and I guess mom probably knew that the man was hungry. Life was being tough on this man, so she starts making pancakes. Does anybody remember this story besides me? I'll never forget it. And so she kept, this guy he sat down outside, ate all the pancakes, and Mark's mom's doing more pancakes and more pancakes. And he just keeps eating. And after so many pancakes, he gets up and leaves. Not a word said to her. I want to be the 300 pancake person. I want to always see a need, and I fail at this miserably, but I always want to see the need and just keep making those pancakes for whatever the need is and not expect anything in return. I have to believe that service that we all do, and I am amazed at the service I see from each of you, is part of the gift that is in us. But you know what about service? Service is always about someone else. Service, we might get some benefit. We might feel good that we've done something. But service is always about someone else. So continue to reflect on your moments. when those seeds have come to fruition, and now they create the life pathway that you're walking. I keep saying that, but I want you to think about it. Such reflection ends up leading to awe, to just awe, as we understand how we are being guided. Guided by God. This is your life. This is you. See it, recognize it, use it, be patient, trust as the path unfolds. May your continued journeys be blessed, and may they be filled with joy. Amen.